In this new segment of Advisor Revelations, the DPL team will discuss how to evaluate new solutions and address current challenges and the strategies that can help you grow your firm and AUM.
Hello and welcome to the Advisor Revelations podcast. I'm Jonathan Barth, Vice President of Member Success here at DPL Financial Partners. Today, we're going to discuss exactly what is member success at DPL. Before we get to our conversation, I'd like to introduce our guest, Daylin Huff, who is a membership consultant here at DPL. Daylin, thanks for taking the time to join us here today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, I know you have some great insight that you're ready to share with everybody. But before we get into that too much, I want to remind all of our listeners to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite streaming app for updates. We update the podcast and our website all the time. If there's anything that we talk about today that interests you, you can always contact DPL at our website, dplfp.com. All right, Daylin. So that our listeners have a better understanding of your experience here at DPL and what membership means at DPL, can you share a little bit about yourself and what you do at DPL?
Yeah, of course. So I started here at DPL back in 2023. Originally started as an associate, just working with my team to develop proposals, illustrations on products. Operationally was calling out, making sure business was getting across the finish line. And so just supporting my team and territory the best I could. And then got promoted after that in that position for about a year and started as a membership consultant. And so when firms came to meet with DPL, I was the first face they seen on the intro call and kind of held their hand through the onboarding process and making sure that transition was smooth. As they got transitioned to their internal consultant, who's their day-to-day point of contact once they become a DPL member. And so now that's currently, as of just a couple weeks ago, the position I'm in now is an internal consultant. So working day-to-day with DPL member firms, ensuring they have a great experience on the platform.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Thank you. It sounds like you've been wearing a lot of hats here at DPL over your time, particularly being the first face that a lot of advisors see and start to associate with DPL. Could you talk maybe a little bit about what some of the initial conversations you had with firms that are coming and looking at DPL? How do you start those conversations generally?
Yeah, the conversation starts out with a lot of discovery. Learning about their firm and their needs, them learning about DPL and what we do, and seeing where we could possibly be a good fit. I would say a lot of times, especially in my time at the role as a membership consultant, we were talking a lot with these firms about potentially breaking away, possibly leaving a broker dealer, having a book of annuities that hasn't been addressed, having clients with annuities that they don't have a solution for. Don't know how to review. And so these are all things, as we're meeting with the firms, we're uncovering and unpacking and trying to figure out what DPL can do to address a pain that they may have been having in the past.
Awesome. Well, that's great. So I know a big part of our conversation here today is going to be focused around member success and working with not only enterprise firms and some of the largest firms in the industry, but everything in between, and even those firms that are kind of in that middle ground. Maybe they've been in business for a few years and they're trying to grow and scale their business. But before we get into it too much, I think one thing that advisors and listeners probably want to hear is what keeps coming up when you're on these calls, when you're starting to talk to advisors for the first time. Do you find that there are any recurring pain points that you're seeing firms bring up?
Yeah, great question. I would say, especially the past year, there's been a lot of movement with firms, maybe hybrid firms that are looking to break away from a broker dealer. The only thing that is keeping them from breaking away from that broker dealer is a book of legacy annuities that they have. That they may still be getting compensated on in the form of trails. It isn't necessarily revenue that they want to give up if it's something substantial. And so they've never looked to become fully independent solely because of that reason. And so whenever we're having conversations with these hybrid firms, and this has come up quite a bit, leveraging DPL as a resource to help transition their book of business to the advisory model, and helping these firms to understand that hey, you don't have to leave this revenue behind. Our goal at the end of the day is to actually increase the revenue that you're receiving on this book. And a lot of the times we are able to, after we review a block of business and can 1035 some of the book to an advisory solution and generate recurring revenue for firms. That's pretty powerful to say, hey, we're going to be able to help you not only transition this to the advisory business model and help you go independent fee only, but we're also going to be able to help increase your revenue that you're receiving off of the book.
Well, that's pretty impactful, I would think. So out of your experience and talking to so many firms, how much revenue are we talking about? Like, what part of their overall revenue streams in the business does an existing annuity book typically represent?
They range all different shapes and sizes. I mean, we work with firms who may have 5 to 10 million in annuities at a broker dealer. We work with firms that have hundreds of millions of dollars in annuities at a broker dealer. And that just goes to show the process that we have in place at DPL is built to handle all different types of book sizes and annuity blocks. And just goes to show that the process we do have in place is kind of a one size fits all.
That's awesome. And I know particularly for larger firms, as we start to think about, so many times we're seeing in, anytime you pull up your email or you log on to FA Magazine or Investment News or any other news source, we're seeing a really large firm purchase another firm, or a really large firm is bringing in another large team and going through M&A activity. I think really what DPL is turning into is a platform, and what we have turned into is a platform for advisors to find ways to scale this business. Is there a specific program or workflow that advisors and these teams typically go through when they have a big book of existing annuities? Is there a formal process for that?
Yeah, exactly. It's called our Breakaway Accelerator program.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so it's just as it says, helps advisors who are going independent. But since we've developed the Breakaway Accelerator program a couple years ago, we've seen RIAs start to utilize it in different ways. And as you mentioned, the consolidation of the RIA space with M&A activity, a lot of firms I'm talking to on the front end are either talking about being bought or buying someone else. And so we've seen firms start to leverage our Breakaway Accelerator program to, one, buy out blocks of business that may have a heavy allocation of annuities. And that honestly gives them a leg up whenever they enter the M&A space, having that competitive advantage whenever they're approaching hybrid firms saying, hey, we have this resource that we're leveraging to where this block of annuities you have, that's not going to be a problem for us. We're going to be able to transition that to an advisory model, improve your revenue on the book. And whenever you're an RIA and you have that pitch versus an RIA who maybe doesn't have a process in place for annuities and insurance, I think the advisor that's being bought is going to go with the RIA that can handle it, right? And so that's one way we've seen RIAs leverage our Breakaway Accelerator program. Another one may be not just a whole firm that they're acquiring, but maybe they want to acquire a single advisor's book of business or bring on a breakaway advisor who's leaving a wirehouse or leaving a broker dealer and want to go independent and join an RIA. Same process that we have in place through our Breakaway Accelerator program. We're going to be able to review that advisor's entire block of business and see what we can 1035 to an advisory solution. And 7 out of 10 times from our experience, we are going to be able to recommend a 1035 exchange and get that advisor recurring AUM revenue.
So that was one thing I was going to ask about, is how frequently are we able to transition, a book of business? You're saying 7 out of 10. So that means that if someone has 1,000 annuities, that we're able to move about 700 of them over to the advisory space.
Yeah, I would say that's a fair statement. And it catches a lot of advisors by surprise. Typically the first call I'm meeting with the advisors, I'm telling them about our solution, about the Breakaway Accelerator program, how we can help transition their block of annuities, kind of the 3-step process of how we're first going to look to 1035. And a lot of advisors, and most of the time it comes down to just education and not knowing about commission-free annuities and the power of a commission-free annuity versus a traditional annuity. They're under their own assumption that we won't be able to move a lot of their book, right? And so it's not going to make sense for us from an economic standpoint to move this block of business because you're not going to be able to 1035 anything. I doubt you'll be able to move anything. But advisors are pleasantly surprised whenever they do share their book information with us and we run the bulk analysis on how much we are actually able to 1035 and offer a recommendation to transition it to an advisory solution.
Well, that's fantastic. And then I'll just go ahead and plug this for everybody else that's listening. We not only have the ability to do this on an individual contract basis, but we can do this in mass, an entire book of business with that data that you're talking about, and be able to review and create proposals in a matter of minutes, right? I mean, I think we just did this for somebody who had about 1,100 contracts, ran it through our mass annuity comparison calculator, and served this up in a matter of, I think, less than 5 minutes or something like that, with proposals and everything. So that sounds like member success to me, and that's fantastic. And the one thing that I'll say, you mentioned it multiple times, but I'll call it out again, is that when you're partnering with someone like DPL on a platform that's focused on helping you break away and be able to scale your business, you're going to end up making more money as well. So the client gets a better solution, which is always at the forefront for us. The advisor is going to find a product that's better for them, better for the client. They're able to charge advisory fees. So they go from receiving a commission to an advisory fee, which is huge value to the advisor. And then ultimately to the firm, from a business valuation standpoint, that's a huge win as well, because we know the multiple people will get on their book of business for advisory fees significantly higher than those in commission. So that's great. So Breakaway, Accelerator program, existing books of business, that sounds like a big thing that you talk about. What else are firms bringing to the table when they talk to DPL for the very first time? If they're not leaving a broker dealer, or maybe they left a broker dealer a few years ago, what else are you seeing? Is there anything else that is a pain point that typically comes up?
Yeah, great question. I would say another big one that especially I've ran into recently is firms approaching us and not happy with their current process for insurance and annuities, whether it's just clunky, it's not scalable for the firm, they don't have the resources and tools necessary to kind of streamline the process. And so it's taken a lot of time out of their day, time that they could be meeting with clients, times that they could be having internal meetings and strategizing. They're having to put this into, calling out to insurance carriers or, trying to put out fires. And those are a lot of things I'm hearing on the front end. And, when talking with them, with the tools and the technology we built out, and what you referenced earlier, having a tool that can review a block of annuities within a couple minutes, and offer recommendations and serve them up to you within a couple minutes is pretty powerful. But not just that, the tools that we have, for application tracking on the back end for a contracts tab, having daily values in your advisor dashboard. And not only that, but getting data feeds set up into your reporting software, which traditionally, I mean, as you know, on the insurance and annuity side, that is lagged behind quite a bit when it comes to data and visibility. So for an advisor telling them that we're going to be able to integrate this data directly into your reporting software, and you can single sign on and be able to see your annuity and insurance business right alongside your client's other assets without having to go get an outside aggregator or something like that, is very powerful. And like I said, a more streamlined process than what they're used to.
Well, that sounds like a lot, honestly. You mentioned a few things there. You mentioned tools, you mentioned technology, you mentioned application tracking, you mentioned data feeds, and all of this is a part of a single platform. So I'm curious to hear, what kind of response do you typically get from advisors when you're demoing the platform to them? What typically sticks out to them? Where are they typically asking more questions or saying, hey, tell me more about this?
Yeah. Great question. And I would say they're surprised. 90% of the time, they're surprised by one, how well it integrates into their existing business model. So they're not going to have to change a lot. I mean, our platform is built to integrate seamlessly into an RIA business model. And we built it like that with the data feeds we offer into the reporting software, but two, the tools and technology we have that are similar to and used to what they may be using already on some of their financial planning softwares. And so it's easy for an advisor to catch on and start doing these things on their own whenever they see the tools and technology we've built out. And at the end of the day, we have consultants, and we're not expecting the advisors to be product experts on the 70 different solutions we have, right? And so that's why having the consultant who's there, hey, I ran the tool and I have these three products and which one's better, that's where a consultant can come in, explain the product differentials and maybe the niche of each and where it can fit into a client's portfolio. These are all things that advisors are pleasantly surprised when I'm demoing through the tools on not only how well it integrates, but the ease of use and just how it's similar to what they're currently using.
That's awesome. So I guess a few things there. You mentioned one that the tools are similar to what they're using within their current financial planning software systems, and I think what you mean by that is that oftentimes in a financial plan we're trying to solve, or advisors are trying to solve for an X amount of dollars in retirement, right? You have a client that makes $100,000. Great, we have to replace that in retirement. We've got to do that some way, whether it's through a withdrawal strategy or pension or Social Security. We have to find a way to fill that bucket back up to 100 grand every year for the rest of the advisor's life. The DPL tools on the platform give that same capabilities, right? We can back solve for the amount of income that someone's trying to solve for, and then find the most efficient product, meaning that the least amount of premium to allocate to that product, making the portfolio more efficient. That's a big benefit to advisors and clients. And then, correct me, if I'm wrong, but these tools are in some portfolio management software systems too, right? Directly on an advisor's desktop.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And what does that bring to an advisor?
I mean, to have a full integration like that to where you can sign into your reporting software, not only have visibility on account values and where your annuity assets stand for the day, but to be able to actually run tools and run comparisons and have a tab that populates held away annuities that your clients already own, and to be able to click one button and it takes you straight to the tool and runs the analysis for you. It's super robust, and I would say advisors definitely gravitate towards a process that is integrated into what they're currently using, because at the end of the day, we want to save them time, give them more time back to their clients. And that's something that oftentimes we're able to accomplish and accommodate for firms that we're speaking to.
100%. Yeah, it's all about providing a platform that is repeatable, scalable. It's the biggest thing. So I want to go back to something that you said earlier. You mentioned a lot of the conversations you've been having are around firms going through M&A activity. And I think we've all seen, listeners, you and me, everybody alike that's in this industry right now, there is an influx of private equity money into the RIA space. RIAs run great businesses. They're very profitable businesses. There's a lot of opportunity and growth there. I'd love to hear what you have heard from firms that are coming and talking to DPL that have taken on private equity money. What do they like? What do they not like? What are they trying to solve for and fix within their business?
Yeah, no, great question. Definitely with the consolidation of the RIA space, it's been a big topic of conversation. And actually, just recently, I brought on a firm who was actually a referral from a current member firm. We had already been working with one of these firms located in Connecticut, and they had a book of annuities that we were addressing. And they kind of gave us a heads up that, hey, this firm may be acquiring us soon. We'll get you in touch with them. We think you should talk to them. We think you could help them out. And in meeting with this firm, realized that M&A was a huge goal for them this year. They had already closed on a few acquisitions early Q1, but wanted to kind of keep that same cadence throughout 2025 and 2026. And in talking with them and talking with their executives and learning that firms that they were bringing on and acquiring have books of annuities and blocks of insurance. And kind of the aha moment for them was realizing that this was revenue that they hadn't accounted for, and revenue that we could help them capture and bring in house and start to generate recurring revenue for them. And so that was a huge advantage for them as they were prospecting these prospective books of business and pricing these books out, being able to give the advisor a better price on their book for one, by taking into account the insurance and annuity portion, but also being able to increase the valuation of the book as they transition it to an advisory model. So it's not only giving them a leg up whenever they're going after these firms and trying to acquire them, but for the end advisor who is being acquired, it only helps them more by one, being able to increase the revenue they're getting off the book and increase the valuation of their business.
That's a win-win for both sides. I'll even speak to this. I know that there's a handful of firms that include us as a part of their discovery day, right? When they're coming in and they're trying to do an M&A deal, and the firms are they're doing this weird kind of dating song and dance, trying to figure out, do I like you? Do you like me? Is this going to make sense? Do you have everything that I need? Do I get everything that I need out of you? I know that DPL is a part of a lot of those diligence processes from member firms. I think that's super impactful. And I think that we're only going to see more of this in the industry leading into the end of 2025 and into 2026. That's member success, right? It's all about driving revenue. And the one thing that, Daylin, you hit on a little bit, and I mentioned it, but when you lead with the client's going to win, the client's going to get a better product and a better solution, which we know is going to happen because of the advisory commission-free space, everyone else wins as well. It's the whole reason that the puck is moving and skating. We're skating that way of where the puck's going rather than where the business has been from the very beginning. Well, I know that was a lot of what we wanted to cover today. There's a lot more juicy details that anyone could get into if they're interested in. But before I wrap us up, Daylin, any final thoughts, closing comments, anything that's just right there that you want to make sure we talk about today, or that you get out that we haven't already?
Yeah, I would just hit on the point that you just touched on. Whenever you're talking about working with DPL, you're talking about the power of commission-free annuities. It's twofold. One, we're looking to get the client into a better situation, which a lot of times we are. And two, for the advisor and their business, what that means to them is getting recurring revenue, generating AUM organically that they normally wouldn't be able to obtain. And this all comes from, like you said, one, improving the client scenario, and that's always what we're looking to do. So I appreciate the discussion today, and I'm glad we got to chat for a bit.
Took full advantage of the opportunity. So I want to thank you for joining us here today, sharing your insights, which we know not easily available out there in this space. So it's always good to hear straight from the source. Thank you, everyone, for listening as well. I would remind everyone again to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're currently listening. And then if you'd like to see a platform demo, if there's anything here that really interests you, want to just learn more, you even want to connect with Daylin or myself, or talk to anybody else on the team, you can find us at our website. It's dplfp.com. And till next time, this was Advisor Revelations Podcast. Daylin, thank you so much. Talk to everybody soon.
Thanks for listening. To hear more Advisor Revelations, go to dplfp.com and subscribe on your favorite podcast streaming app.